Hey, hi everyone. This is Tamara, one of your SFU health peer educators. So you might already know and recognize the health peers as the students that work with SFU's health promotion team to promote health education outreaches on a variety of topics, and they include mental health, sexual health, active living, and healthy eating and nutrition, which is what we're here to talk about today. So if you haven't seen us before, welcome and thank you for joining us. And today we're going to be excited to be starting our new podcast series called Let's Taco About Nutrition. So we'll be covering some cool topics throughout the series like healthy eating, tips to avoid processed sugars, stress eating during finals time, and more. But for our first episode today, we're going to be talking about navigating food around the holidays since many of them are slowly approaching, and it could be useful to learn some more strategies that we can keep in mind as we head into the holiday season. I know sometimes it's easy to overindulge during social gatherings when there's so much good food on the table and you're having such a good time with friends and family, but we'll share some of our top tips on how to be mindful when choosing what goes on our plates. But before we start, I just want to introduce my co-hosts and fellow health peers that are here with me today. We have Aleisha, Adrianna, and Meghan. So with that, let's tackle about navigating food during the holidays. Okay, so for our first topic, we're going to talk about why and how we can choose some more vegetables. I know when you see all the good options on the table, your eyes just automatically go to whatever you want or whatever you're craving. Sometimes there's something that smells really good, but it's always important to keep in mind to try to choose more vegetables if possible. I know the infamous Eat Your Veggies line has been said many times, but it definitely has some good reasons to support it. Probably the most commonly known knowledge is that vegetables and fruits, they have important nutrients like fiber, vitamins, minerals, and other things that are all really important to contribute to a healthy eating pattern. But another good reason why vegetables are a good option is, and that's something that's less talked about, is the concept of energy density. I know I didn't really know a lot about energy density, so some of you might be wondering, what does that even mean? But in basic terms, energy density is the number of calories, or in other words, the amount of energy in a specific amount of food. So for example, a low energy density food means that there's fewer calories in a lot of that given food, which is the case with fruit and vegetables, meaning you could eat a greater volume of the fruit and vegetables, but it will be lower in calories. So the reason why that fruits and vegetables are low energy density is because they have mostly high water content, which provides the volume and weight to them, but not as many calories. So for example, when you're eating a fresh carrot, it's made of about 88% water, which is quite a lot, but overall, the average size carrot only has 25 calories. And also the fiber found in vegetables such as carrots and others, it takes longer to digest. So that means you can feel fuller on fewer calories, and it can help with overeating by preventing that. So for these reasons, it can be really good to be mindful of including vegetables on your plate because they're not only providing you with those important nutrients that I mentioned earlier, but they can also help satisfy your hunger just by making you feel full while consuming fewer calories overall. And this can definitely help prevent accidentally overeating other foods, such as those containing carbs or any other foods that just make you feel super bloated and sluggish after a meal, because this can definitely help make you feel fuller on less. So just try to keep this in mind when making your plate. I know for me, at social gatherings, I always try to include some green salad on my plate if possible, or just whatever other vegetables are offered. I really love zucchini as well. Do you guys have any vegetables that you guys have as favorites or you guys prefer to eat? Aleisha?
Yes. Yes, I also love zucchini. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I like the mushy texture of it. Although I love Brussels sprouts, but I don't like Brussels sprouts that are mushy. When it's overcooked, it's just garbage. I just don't like it.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Brussels sprouts. I'm also really weird. I love Brussels sprouts, but yeah, like no boiled, no mushy, nothing like that. I like them cut in half, coated with like a little bit of olive oil, not too much, some like sea salt or something, and then you roast them until they're almost black, and they're so crispy and delicious. They're just amazing. How about you, Adriana? What do you like?
Yes, I totally agree. A boiled Brussels sprout is a no-go, but my favorite vegetable, I really like zucchini, but I also really like baby bok choy. I think they're really good if you toast them in the oven. But a full serving of vegetables will actually lead us perfectly into our next segment, which is how to practice portion control to avoid portion distortion. So if we all be honest with ourselves, I think this can be a really difficult habit to put into practice, especially as we move into the holiday season. Our plates just seem to be getting bigger and bigger. However, proper portions are extremely important for maintaining good health, as well as maintaining a positive relationship with food. So with that, here are 5 tips that you can use during your next meal to help you practice portion control. So tip number 1, use smaller plates for meals. A normal serving of food looks a lot smaller when it's served on a larger plate. And since it's true that we eat with our eyes first, using a smaller plate may be a helpful tool to kind of trick ourselves into thinking that we're actually eating a larger portion than we are. Tip number 2 is to make a balanced plate. So thinking about the balanced plate guidelines will help us make better choices while serving. And in order to do this, you can divide your bowl or your plate. So half is filled with veggies, a quarter is protein, and the remaining quarter is a fibrous carbohydrate source. So all of these different sources combined will help you ensure that you're eating for high satiety, so you feel full longer on less food. Tip number 3 is to use your hands as guides. So you actually have your very own measuring devices at the end of your arms. Your hands can be a quick and easy guide to use. So on average, the palm of your hand can be the equivalent of 1 serving of protein. A closed fist is roughly a cup. So this can be used to kind of approximate a serving of carbs, so maybe some rice. And your fingertip is approximately a serving of fat. So that can be butter that you used in 1 serving. Tip number 4 is to plate out your food. So it might be helpful to portion out your food instead of eating out of a package or container, because we tend to eat actually a lot more when we're eating out of larger packages. So measuring out a serving according to the food label will help you see what a serving of that food should look like on a plate. And the final tip, tip number 5, is to drink water. So it's actually recommended to have a cup of water 30 minutes before each meal, as staying hydrated can help you differentiate between your feelings of hunger and those feelings of thirst. And this will help you better manage your portions. And also, water is a much better option to accompany a meal than a sugar-sweetened juice or a pop. So what is something that you guys do to practice portion control throughout the holidays or just in general?
I love that you mentioned drinking water, because that's something that I always try to live by, especially if I'm drinking alcohol with my family during the holidays. What I like to do is I like to have 1 alcoholic drink, which probably has a lot more calories than I would like, and then I'll have a glass of water afterwards, and I just repeat that throughout the night. And then that way I'm hydrating myself, hopefully preventing the hangover the next morning, and I'm also just drinking less calories overall. How about you?
I definitely like what you said, Megan, about the drinking, because I know when you think about portion control, you don't often think about what you're drinking as well. So that's something that's really cool to keep in mind. But personally, I usually just try to make a balanced plate, trying to make sure that there's enough of proper portions of each food group on my plate. But I think another point that Adrianna brought up that was really cool was the using your hands as guides. I never really thought about that before, but since they're right there with you, you might as well use them. So I think maybe the next time I go into a family gathering or a family dinner, I'll definitely try to use that one as well. What about you, Aleisha?
Yeah, I definitely agree with both of you. I know when I drink, I tend to eat more, which is not really good. But I like your tip about drinking water and kind of alternating. For me, I like to make a balanced plate and kind of consciously think about what I'm putting onto my plate, and also thinking about, am I going to eat what's on my plate too? And which kind of leads me to mindfulness tips that you could practice before you head to holiday dinner. So mindfulness is a term that's often thrown around a lot, especially with yoga and meditation, but it's basically a fancy term for being aware and staying in the present. which can be helpful in gaining control over your eating habits. By becoming more attuned to your body and recognizing those signals for fullness, it can help reduce overeating and find the right balance for your body. So some tips that you could practice would be conscious of your emotions. Often we overeat when we're emotional, and during the holidays, it can be an emotional and stressful time. Just being mindful about your emotions and making sure that you're eating because you're hungry and not because you're sad or you're stressed, which kind of leads me to another tip: eat only when you're hungry. It can be tempting when you see other people snacking, and then you start snacking, and then by the time you get to dinner, you're practically half full. Just remember to pace yourself. And you can also do this by just eating slowly, making sure that you chew really slow until the food is completely chewed. Fun fact, the body actually sends its signal for fullness about 20 minutes after the brain actually receives it. So by eating slower, it gives a chance for your brain to kind of catch up with your stomach. And just remember to recognize your body signals. Stop when you're full. Through practicing mindfulness, you start to get better at recognizing your body's signals and even eyeballing how much food will actually make you full. And so you get better at anticipating those signals too. And lastly, just enjoy the food. Think about how the food tastes. Stop thinking about whether it's bad for you or how you have to eat this broccoli, and just appreciate every bite and savor the taste. And this will also help with chewing slower. Often we eat mindlessly. Through mindfully savoring the food, we pay more attention to what we're actually eating, and even help with reminding us to eat slower. Tamara, how do you practice mindful eating?
Yeah, those are all really great points, but I think the one that I relate to the most is I try to eat slower. I know sometimes it's really hard when you're in a group setting and you're talking and having fun and you get excited, but I think eating slower really helps, just because I know when I eat too fast, I can tend to feel like, oh, I'm not full, I'll eat more. And then soon after, I'm feeling the effects. I have a stomach ache, I'm bloated, I'm not feeling that great. So I think eating slower definitely helps me. What about you, Adrianna?
Yeah, I think those are all really great points. But one thing that I'm trying to get better at too, takes a lot of practice, is to just stop when you're full. It's really hard when you have a full plate of food and it all tastes really good and you want to eat it, but you're full and it's there, so you just end up eating more. But just recognizing and listening to your body, it'll tell you when it's full and when it's time to stop. So I think just paying better attention to that is something I'm trying to do as well. How about you, Megan?
Yeah, I love the idea of the slowness and like the taking time and really appreciating the food. Aleisha, you mentioned that your body takes 20 minutes to actually register that you're full after you're full. So I feel like if you're eating slowly, there's kind of like less opportunity for you to just eat all of those extra calories that you can, shove down your throat in the 20 minutes it takes. But yeah, I think taking time is a really important thing. And also, yeah, like you mentioned, just enjoying your food without guilt, just thinking of it as food and not giving it any kind of like a negative label, which perfectly segues us into our next set of tips, which is regarding negative labels and negative thoughts that we tend to have towards food, which is a really big issue, I think, that a lot of people deal with all the time and not just around the holidays. So we tend to label food as bad, especially when we're looking at this huge table full of food. We see those amazing creamy mashed potatoes and we think, oh, that's a bad food. Like, that's not a food that I should eat all the time. Or you look at the plate of desserts, the pumpkin pie, the apple pie, all those amazing holiday desserts, and you think, oh, I can't eat that. That's, not something that is good for me at all. But that kind of thinking tends to backfire on us. And usually at the end of the night, we're sitting on the couch with a food coma, wondering how the heck we got here, what happened, why did I eat so much? And we kind of feel that guilt about it. But I think it's a really important mindset to get into, and that it's really hard to do, but it's a good thing to practice thinking about food as something that will satiate you and give you nutrients and give you energy, and not necessarily labeling it as healthy or unhealthy. And I think that when you're, navigating the holidays, it's a really difficult thing to do because there are a lot of foods that you can consider to be unhealthy. But if you just eat more things that are better for you, that are going to be better for you, that are going to have that less calorie and energy density and all of that, and have maybe smaller portions of the desserts and all the stuff that you probably shouldn't have as much of, then I think that can kind of help negate some of those unhealthy thoughts. So what are your guys' thoughts? Like, what do you think about labels on foods and things like that?
I think that it's a really important topic to kind of get into. And I think it's important to remember to just eat for you. Like you were saying, a lot of the times we attach these good or bad labels on food, and then we kind of internalize that and put morals on ourselves. So like, I ate a bad food, therefore I'm a bad person. But I think it's just important to just enjoy your food and just, and lose those labels that don't really need to be there. How about you, Aleisha?
Yeah, I completely agree with the morals. I feel like we often say, I ate salad last week, I'm a good person, I deserve to treat myself. And often our treats involve eating large amounts of stuff that we label as bad. But I think the key here is moderation, because oftentimes we say, don't do this, and it just makes us want to do it more. But if you kind of moderate yourself and you learn to kind of limit yourself, your body kind of naturally doesn't want it as much as it usually does, and then you don't end up in that food coma. What about you, Tamara?
I definitely agree with what you all said. I think it's just important, like you said, just don't label the food. Nothing should be labeled as good or bad, because that can lead to really unhealthy eating habits. And I think overall it's just important to just keep in mind eating in moderation. I know sometimes you feel like you've been treating yourself too many times one week, but it's okay, because overall, if you just do have it in the back of your mind, it does balance out. And I think it's good just to not worry about what's good, what's bad, and what's a treat, and when you should and should not treat yourself, because it's just it can lead to more stress, I think, in the long run.
Yeah, I very much identify with what you guys are talking about with the whole treating yourself thing. I am so bad for that. I'll drink a smoothie in the morning, and by the time the evening rolls around, I'll say, oh yeah, I was so good today. I'm just gonna like eat half a bag of chips for dinner or something like that, right? Because I was good this morning. And I think, it's a really bad habit that I'm trying to break. And what I'm trying to do instead is trying to teach myself to treat myself with healthier stuff that I enjoy. So, I'll roast some delicious Brussels sprouts or something and eat those as like something that I enjoy, rather than treating myself with something that I know is probably not good for me. So the final tips that we're going to talk about are something that I think a lot of people have to deal with, and it is the person in your family or in your friend group who is a food pusher. I think that it's a pretty common thing. I know I have a friend who will just constantly pile food onto my plate and doesn't really care if I'm full. So it's very hard to navigate, and there's definitely going to be people like that in family situations. And it can be a really, really hard thing to do, to say no, for two reasons. You have this person who's in front of you who you love and who probably made something handmade for you and for your family, and you're trying to say no. And then another part of it is that, on some level, you probably want to eat that food because it looks amazing, but you're probably full, you've probably had too much already, and you have to try and learn how to say no, which can be very difficult. So the first thing that I like to do probably wouldn't necessarily work for everybody. I guess it kind of depends on the person you're dealing with, but I like to make a joke and kind of make light of the situation and say things like, oh, I can't eat any of that. I have to drive tonight. What are you talking about? I can't have any more. Or if you're wanting to take it in a more assertive direction and, maybe not make light of it as much, just saying no, thank you. You might have to say it a few times to, get them to fully register that that's what you're saying. I know when I was a kid, I was really, really picky, and I would tell everybody that I was full. I would just say, I'm full, and eventually people would just leave me alone. So I'll give it to you guys now. What do you do when you have a food pusher in your life, if there is one? I know it's not everybody does it, but if you do, what do you do?
Yeah, for me, I know South Asian cultures, grandmas and even moms are notorious for being food pushers, but I guess it's kind of the same in most cultures too. And I like to flip it. So I like to say, Grandma, how much is on your plate? How much are you eating? And she usually eats a small amount and then says, Aleisha, you're growing, you need to eat more, even though I'm not growing anymore as much as I wish I still was. But usually I try to put some jokes in there, and usually she ends up leaving me alone because she doesn't want to cave in because she always tends to eat a certain amount, and that usually kind of works for me. What about you, Tamara?
I think that's really cute what you said about your grandma. But yes, I definitely agree that I have some food pushers in my life. Like you said, usually grandma or mom, even aunties sometimes. I know it's coming from a good place in their heart. They just want to share their good food with the family and make sure everyone's full and satisfied. But sometimes when you're full, you're full. And I do feel guilty because sometimes I know they can say things that make you feel really guilty and almost guilt you into eating, like, oh, you don't like my food, or I made this just for you. But when you're full, there's not much you can do about it sometimes. So what I try to do is, if possible, I'll just say, okay, like I do really want to eat this, but just not right now. So sometimes, if possible, you could just take it to go, take it home in a little container, or even put it to the side and maybe a little bit later in the night when you're not as full and you've digested a bit more. If you have some space, you can eat half of it or just save it for later at a time that's more convenient for you when you have the room for it. What about you, Adriana?
Yeah, I don't know that I have a specific food pusher in my life, but I do know that food is something that brings a lot of families together, and it can be really hard when you're around your family in a big setting to say no. But I think, like you said, if you're full, and there's not much you can do on that. So just saying no, thank you can be a good thing to kind of learn how to get into. But with all those points, that brings us to our conclusion for this podcast. So we hope you remember to choose more veggies, practice portion control, use mindful eating as a technique to help you gain control of your eating habits, focus on what feels good to you, and remember that it's okay to say no to food. So start slow and maybe try out one of these new tips so you can make changes that will be more sustainable in the long term. We hope this nutrition podcast will be helpful as you navigate this upcoming holiday season. And please leave a note in the comments about one thing that you do to be mindful over the holidays, and we'll be sure to check those all out. We hope to see you in our next podcast to talk about more nutrition topics. Thanks and goodbye, everyone.